All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the call. I think we've got a pretty cool call today. We're going to be speaking with Jason Meese, and we're going to talk about something he did last week that was very special. And we're going to get a little bit into, what he was doing before he came onto our telesales platform. First, I've got some stuff I do want to share with you. Give me a moment, guys. So I do want to, Jason, I want to introduce him a little bit, and then I'm going to have you come on, buddy. What I know about Jason is really not very much, because Jason isn't an agent that contacted me. He has a relationship with someone else who is on our platform. And that agent actually said, hey, Jason, you may want to try this. So it's pretty cool that he actually brought in an agent, one of his agents, to do this. And therefore, I don't know a lot about you, Jason. I just don't. So I'm gonna ask you a lot of stuff today to get to know you. So with that being said, I do want to welcome Jason M to the call. Go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Good morning. It is Meese. You said it right once, I think, and then the next time.
And then I said
Mize.
So
yeah,
it is
but don't
Meese.
worry.
Okay.
Yeah, I get Mize every time.
All right. Excellent, man. Excellent. So what I'd like to know a little bit is, because I know you've been on the platform for a couple of months now, and I think, and that's just what I guess I'm asking. I'm assuming you were a field agent selling final expense face-to-face before you came on. Is that correct?
Only for probably 3 months, 2 or 3 months. I was trying to sell final expense face-to-face. Prior to that, I did, I think, 9 months selling cancer, heart attack, stroke, and accident insurance door to door, quite literally.
Gotcha.
And then prior to that, I was in gas and oil for 9 years. Prior to that, I sold for Reebok and Adidas. So that I was in sales and then out of sales and then back into sales. But up until July of 2021, I have no insurance experience whatsoever.
Okay, excellent. So at least when you did come on to our platform, you had sold some final expense, and sold some other insurance products. Approximately how much final expense were you selling on a weekly or monthly basis?
Minimal. And I came in with a small budget. That's kind of my big problem. Like, all y'all, especially newer folks, I know Doug talks about, putting the money up front. I mean, you got to think of this is a business. Well, I didn't have the money. So I think in the 2.5 months maybe that I was going face to face, I had a ton of no shows, but people were giving me old leads. I bought some Facebook leads, but they didn't seem to work out. So I live just a little bit north of Houston. So when I had a face-to-face appointment, I mean, I was in the car for an hour mostly, even though it was on the other side of town. So I think it was about 3 of those, and I was no show, or I knock on the door and say, hey, and they're like, what? That I don't even know what this is. I don't want that, even though they sent in the direct mailer. So I want to say I sold 8 less than 10 policies in a couple months of face-to-face. Now, granted, with poor leads. And then I think I had about a week solid where I had more appointments than normal for my week, maybe 12. And I think all but one of them was a no-show. And I spent all day, every day for 5 days in my car. And that's when I told Ruman, I said, hey, I got to figure something else out, because this is not the right approach. And then that's when he kind of talked about the telesales. And then I think in those first 2 weeks of using your system, I sold more than the apps I sold in the 2 months prior going face to face.
Excellent. Excellent. And that was actually what I was going to ask you, what was the difference between, your sales activities from face-to-face to telesales? So not only, no more driving around all over the place and buying expensive leads, but you're actually selling more than you've ever sold with final expense.
For sure.
Okay, excellent. Now, I want to ask you a couple of little side kind of questions. With the presentation that you use, and guys, let me just say this. So Jason, I don't even know if you realize this. In the past few weeks, what I've done is I've taken what a couple of the agents are doing that have like a lot of appointments and are speaking with a lot of people. They've kind of compressed the presentation. So what I did was I put together a more compressed version, but I know that when I listened to your calls, the last time I listened to them a few weeks ago, you were doing the presentation that I sent out to you. So my question to you is now, and by the way, awesome job. Then guys, the way he is probably the only guy that pretty much reads my presentation word for word, but it actually doesn't sound like he's reading it. Like as to where most of us, we start to read it and then we start using our own words. What he seems to do is basically go like word for word, but the way he says it, it sounds like a conversation. So kudos to you, man. What I want to know is this. When you go to close and you're giving them a quote or quotes, are you using the thing where you're giving them 3 or multiple quotes, or are you doing the close where you're just saying, okay, their basic funeral cost around $12,000. I can give you a $12,000 policy for $85 a month, and you tell me what to do. We can go higher, we can go lower. Which approach are you using? The three quotes or the 1 quote?
I'm doing the 3 still. I like the 1, and I did the 1, I don't know, maybe once or twice, but I'm kind of got the script sort of memorized. So it just didn't flow right. So if I worked on it, it probably would be better, but it just kind of felt unnatural. And then when I was selling cancer insurance, we did the 3. So I don't know. Every time I'm like, okay, just do the 1. And when I open my mouth, the 3 comes out.
Gotcha. Yeah. To me, the 3 quotes is the old school. That's how I always did it face to face. When I had my little call center years ago, back in South Florida, that's how we did it when we sold over the phone. I got kind of interested and started seeing what Chris was doing with his 1 quote, the way he did that close, and we kind of stole it. So thank you, Chris, if you're on the call. I think you are. I do appreciate that. All right, excellent. Now let me ask you something else, Jason, because there's a lot of moving parts with this. And I know you sold in the field. So with that being said, when you're pulling out the quote and you're getting ready to quote the clients, are you using the insurance toolkit's underwriting software, or are you kind of doing it the way that I do it, which is by using like cheat sheets and medication guides by the carrier I'm leaning with? What do you end up doing?
I use the quote tool.
Okay.
And then if they have kind of a longer list of medications, I kind of prep them as to, what I'm doing is just gathering some generic information. Some of these companies get into a little more detail with what you have going on here. This is kind of preliminary, but we'll find, what the best thing for you is.
Excellent. Excellent. So you prep them also, and this is something that we talk about a lot. You kind of prep them in case you have to switch gears and go with a different carrier. And how do you do that?
Yes, kind of just what I said. And I kind of push it back. Maybe it's, sorry, you hear my dog whining in the background. I kind of push it back on them. Like I bring up, you kind of, with all your health things going on or something like that, or well, with the heart attack 2 years ago, I mean, I kind of focused, I want them thinking like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sick, or, oh yeah, maybe I can't get coverage or something like that. And so I reiterate that part of it. And then once I say, but what we're going to try to do is get your first day coverage. But now not everybody does qualify for that. And I know you kind of have a lot of things going on, but we're going to try our best here. Gotcha.
So good. So you do prep them correctly. That's how you do. You're ready to switch gears. Do you ask them when you ask them the medical questions, do you add in like, do you have a way of finding out if they have a checking account or if they use a debit card before you give them a quote?
I usually, once I find one and I'm giving them numbers, I try to do it before him, but same thing, since I've memorized the script, it's hard for me to deviate, but I've tried to say, oh, most of these carriers will take a bank draft or, directly from your bank account. Some of them will take a credit card or direct express card. Do you have a bank account? And then if they say yes or no, then I kind of adjust on the fly, because I didn't do that a couple times. And I went all the way through an application maybe like 3 weeks ago or a month ago. And then someone was like, well, I don't have a bank account. And I was like, oh, okay, let's start over here. And I do it as I'm kind of quoting, but yeah, I just say that most of the carriers take a bank draft, but some will take the card. Do you have a bank account? Or how do you plan on doing this? Something like that.
Gotcha. So, and to me, like some agents will ask that, others are the last thing they want to do is bring up money until they've quoted the client and they've got the client locked in. So I can see it either way. I'm old school. I like to do it just that way. I want to find out before I quote Royal Neighbors, for example. The last thing I want to do is quote Royal Neighbors and then have them say, oh, well, here's my debit card number, my Direct Express, or my Green Dot Bank card number. I want to make sure that they actually have a checking account if I'm going to give them a carrier that doesn't take a Direct Express card. All right, this is excellent stuff, man. I am not going to take much more of your time. I am going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to open it up, see if any of the agents have anything they want to ask. And you guys can like raise your hand or just take yourself off mute. The last thing I want to know basically is, what advice would you give to someone who just is coming on the platform or just started doing telesales with us?
I would say that the strategy works, that the platform works, that the scripts work. And, it really does come down to numbers. I mean, like if you're selling anything, if you can get in front of more people, then, I'm not a hard closer. I find that if I hard close, I get more cancellations. And I'm taking this back to, my cancer insurance too, because that was cold knocking, no leads, just cold knocking. And so if we pushed them too far, they just cancel. So I'm a soft closer and I'm looking for low hanging fruit. And so the more people that I can get in front of, and the more, if you like Doug talks about increasing the budget, I'm coming into a point where I was making a certain amount of money and then changed gears and do a whole different career, which is an expensive thing to do. And I've got, there's 6 of us in my family. And so I didn't have that extra money to invest in that, but I wishing I would have, but because once I feel like the leads are better with spending more on the leads, it seems like the people I'm talking to are I don't know how to say it. They just seem to they seem to not be as pinched for money. And maybe it was just the week, maybe I just caught it just right, but it just seemed like there were better. And with more appointments in the day, I think maybe my mentality changed, because I was spending $650 a week for the last couple months, and all of these appointments, I had a limited number. So I'm scrambling and pushing, and I'm living and dying on every single call. Whereas, last week I had a few days there where I had so many calls that there was one in particular where I could tell, number one, they weren't really interested. They weren't really paying attention. And number two, they had a myriad of illnesses. And so I just jumped off the phone right away. Whereas maybe before I had as many appointments, maybe I would have stayed on the phone and wasted another 20 minutes. And maybe I would have tried to get them. And maybe then, they would have said yes and then canceled because they weren't really interested. And they were just saying yes to get me off the phone. So I think that was a little bit more, kind of helped me a little bit more. And maybe I'm sure it's subconscious and I don't even know, but maybe my tone is different. Maybe I just had a little different attitude about like, oh, okay, I'm just going to move on from this person. I'm not only are they saying like, okay, I'm done. I kind of was in my head thinking like, okay, I'm done with this conversation. I have other people I need to call.
Yeah, well, when you've got a lot more appointments, a lot more people to speak with, it's easier to do that. You can grab some of the low hanging fruit. Now, all right, so this is what's important. What I didn't ask you is your budget, you mentioned it, was $650 a week until last week. And how much was your budget last week where you almost hit the 10,000 of AP?
1,000.
Okay, so you jumped up. That was so you jumped up basically $350
Yep.
for a 1 week. And Had I suggested this to you in the past?
Yeah, a couple times.
Okay, good. Everybody needs to hear that, because I'm suggesting that to everybody, especially agents that come on and they're like you, where they really just they can't start with an $800 or $1,000 budget, and they've got no choice but to start with the bare minimum. So, but my suggestion for anybody, I don't care if you start with $650 or you start with $1,000 weekly budget, you should be scaling that budget, increasing that budget every single week. Because what's eventually going to happen is you're going to hit the right number. It could be 1,200, it could be 1,500, it could be even more. I know a couple agents have gone to as far as $1,600 of a budget spend in a week. But by doing that, you're going to find out, okay, now I know how much of a budget I need to have the amount of presentations that I want to make. And that's what this is all about. Awesome, Jason. Thank you very much. Guys, I want to open it up. Does anybody have anything specific that they'd maybe like to ask him?
Yes, hey, good morning. Oh, go ahead.
Let's see. Let's start with Jeff. Fire away, man.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I had a question for Jason. You might have said this, but I was working out in the gym. With the 650 budget, how much were you able to write with that starting off?
It depended on the week. I had a couple real slow weeks where I think it was like 1,500 or 2,000, but then usually between 3,000 and 5,000.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And keep in mind, Jeff, that Jason is an experienced closer. This guy's been doing sales for years and years and years. Steve, you got your hand up. Fire away. Unmute yourself, please.
Hey, good morning, Doug, and good morning, Jason. Great job, Jason. My question is just a quick one. When I was in the field, I definitely did the 3 option close as well, but working with Doug, I definitely transitioned over to the 1. My question for you is, when you're doing that 3, do you see that people tend to go more towards that middle option? And approximately, what are you doing for your middle option?
Yeah, they're mostly doing the middle option. And for the most part, if they're under 75, I'm doing 10, 15, and 20. And then if they're 75 to 80, and I'm making a mistake, it's to some degree by judging them, because it's one of the things when I was cold knocking on doors, you see some of these houses and you think, okay, well, they can't afford anything. And then you go in there and they're going to buy a $3,000 a year cancer policy. So judging them is a huge mistake, which that's one of my problems. But when they're older and I see those dollar amounts start to creep up, then sometimes I'll do a 5, a 10, and a 15. And especially if they mention that they want to be cremated, I'll usually throw a 5 in there. And especially also if they've mentioned that, whatever, they're on their, Social Security benefit. And one guy, the other day said, well, I don't have much to spend. I only get $800 a month, which that's, not much to go by. So then I start with the 5, but I never really go below 5, because I always tell people that, that's going to be about the minimum you want for a cremation.
So what kind of numbers, I think, is what he's like is your top number like 135, and then your middle 90, and then your bottom like $60 a month approximately?
It just varies on age. I really don't do it by the dollar amount. I do the 10, the 15, and the 20, and I kind of preface it as that, I say it to them. I say, well, without knowing what your plans are for your final expenses and what you want to happen as far as, your funeral and things like that goes, or even what some particulars of your situation are, here are just some common round numbers that are coming up here. And then I say the 10,000 is this, the 15,000 is this, and 20,000 is this. And then I say, like I say, these are just kind of round common numbers, but there's more, there's less. It just depends on, what your plan is. And then people will be like, well, what's a 25? Or, yeah, well, the 15 sounds good.
Gotcha. Very good. Very, very cool. I think Brandon, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. I believe you had a question. If you can.
Oh, I was coughing in the microphone. My thing was picking me up. But, I guess I do have a little bit of a question for you, man. So we were talking about increasing the budget for a while, right? And I'm conservative. I agree with Doug. You have to keep on scaling and moving up over time. But whenever we were talking, you were nervous about increasing to that 1,000, right?
Yes.
And whenever we increased it to the 1,000, how much AP did you write on the first day after we increased it to the 1,000?
I did about just a hair under $5,000 on the first day.
How good did that feel whenever you were nervous about increasing the budget, nervous for months, and then on
Yeah.
the first day,
Yeah.
you quadrupled almost 5 times your money within 24 hours. How good did that feel?
Yeah, it felt awesome. And
Nice.
then the same thing, it just kind of snowballed for the week for me because, and again, from a psychological standpoint and a subconscious standpoint, if you're in a situation where money's tight, I mean, I got 6 mouths to feed and a kind of a hefty mortgage. So getting that out right away, I know that the people I talk to the rest of the week, they're going to hear that desperation in my voice if I am not careful, especially if I know that, man, I don't have enough money to pay my bills this week, so having that happen that the first day was just awesome, because I think that helped me for the rest of the week as well, because then I wasn't putting so much pressure on myself.
Right.
Nice.
And I guess that's something to mention as well. So you made the 5,000 in the first day, and then you had another 4 days left. In the next 4 days, you wrote another 5,000, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, really, what was going through your head whenever you sat there and you were like, all right, big relief, big sigh of relief, but you still were working your butt off for the rest of the week, right?
Yeah, well, I started thinking like, okay, well, I hit 5,000, well, I need to hit 10. And I think I told you, I think it was Thursday or something I talked, and I said, maybe it was Wednesday, I can't remember, but whatever. Because then I was up to about 8,000 then by Wednesday. And I just told myself, like, I need to hit 10. I want to hit 10. I'm not going to
Nice.
waste this opportunity.
Right. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. Love that, man.
Awesome. Excellent. David B, go ahead and unmute yourself and fire away, please.
Hey guys, so I'm brand new. I'm actually still in training, but I'm glad I got on this call because I was actually going to start my budget around the 800 mark. I'm not new to insurance, but I'm new to final expense. I got about 6 months experience. But just hearing, Jason's experience and everything, I'm going to start at the 1,000 mark. And mine's a twofold question, Jason. First one is with $1,000 budget, how many appointments are you seeing per day? And then what is your second part of the question is what is your cancellation rate? If you know that, if you don't, that's fine.
I'd say for a number of appointments, it was, I think every day I had over 15. And I think one of the days, I think it was like 21.
Okay. Good numbers.
Nice.
And
Yep.
then do you know about cancellation or not on that one?
As far as most recently or just overall?
Well, I don't know how long you've been doing the $1,000 budget, so.
Oh, only the week.
Okay. So yeah, so that's new.
I
Okay.
guess
All
I
right.
had one cancel once I moved to the 1,000, I had one of those cancel. They canceled last night, but.
Gotcha. And then maybe Doug knows this more than that. When you get to that $1,000 mark, is there like a percentage, like 10% or 5% of cancellation with that?
Honestly, it depends on the agent. You're going to have people that they're going to go to draft. I mean, it happens in our industry, especially our industry. You're going to have folks who you'll go to draft the first payment and it won't be there, or they'll be with you for 3 months and then they'll cancel. So you're going to have a certain amount of that. I know that that like Brandon and I, we were figuring out his numbers. He started in February, and at the end of the day, it hasn't been a full year yet, but his 1 year persistence is right around 90%.
Nice.
So, which is very high. Here's what I will tell you. Some of the agents, the mistake they're making is that they are not sending out a thank you card, and they are not using the CRM to set up like automations. Like, for example, my wife called Brandon the other day and was like, hey, Brandon, I got clients that are turning 65. How can you help me with the CRM and set it up so that I get a notification when that happens? He can do that. He can show you how to do it. So by getting those notifications, now you're calling the clients and saying, happy birthday. Guys, a lot of their family, even their beneficiaries, don't even call them and wish them a happy birthday. By doing stuff like sending out a thank you card the day after you close your sale, by getting on the phone and wishing them a happy birthday, or calling them around the holidays, your persistence and your placement will definitely be higher than if you do not do those things. So honestly, that's about the best answer statistic wise of the numbers you're looking for.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Excellent. And let's see, Chris, go ahead and unmute yourself, man. I see you got a question.
I was just I know you said you have a lot of new agents on the call, so I was going to kind of give them a little bit of advice. And I also want to tell Jason, congratulations on hitting the 10,000, and don't be afraid to go on up. I mean, I actually started at 1,000 when I came on the system. And of course I was writing a lot of business at 1,000, but I scaled up, went up to, I think I went up to 1,300. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon or Doug. And then this was my first week going up to 1,500. And the reason I went up to 1,500 was more or less because we had a holiday week the week before. And I decided, it was a weird week advertising wise. So I shut it down. I said, you know what, I'm just going to go up the following week and just add extra to, in my mind, make up for not doing as much on the holiday week. And I guess it's safe to say I did that. It worked out. So I'm going to stay there. So Jason, don't be afraid with what you're doing on there. You're going to have that much more success as you go up. And to a lot of the new agents, scaling is very important, like Doug is saying, and what Jason did. But putting in the time is also very important. Just because you have the amount of appointments, like you got to put the time in on those appointments. And I've said this before on calls. I'll give an example. Friday, I wrote 8 apps Friday alone, and I don't know how much. I think I don't know what I wrote, maybe 7,000 just Friday, but I didn't get done until I did not get done till 8:45 Friday night. I was behind all day long. I had things happen. It was actually should have been like my worst day ever. Kids got out of school early, didn't know it. They just changed to a new school. They dismissed early that day. I had to leave because my wife was at work, go get my kids. I was running like 5 hours behind on appointments. Literally, I was on my 11 o'clock appointments at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And of course, I made a bunch of sales really early, and that put me behind. So to your new agents, do not focus on that appointment time at all. I had my last appointment time was at 5:45. I got done at 8:45 that night. 90% of the people, 95 of them don't even notice what time, just they're not concerned with you not calling them at 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Just go get it, put the time in.
Awesome. That is awesome advice. Thank you so much, Chris. Jason, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this. That's a lot of excellent information. Guys, if you need anything, I know we've got a couple of agents. I think, Matt, you're starting tomorrow for your first day. So please let me know if you need anything. Don't hesitate to text me or call me. Guys, I'm going to be out on I want to call it a like business / vacay next week. So I still want you to text me. I still want to stay in contact with you, but just to let you know, if you can't reach me for some reason, Brandon is there for you. That's what we do, guys. Again, Jason, thank you very much. Guys, everybody who participated, thank you so much. I hope you all have an awesome week. Happy hunting.